Welcome back to my Fire Emblem 6 PMU run. Today we're tackling Chapter 11, and this one was pretty easy, I'll be completely honest with you. From the size of the map, you might initially be intimidated by it, especially because there's two ballista on it, one of them being a long ballista, which is stronger and has more range than a regular ballista, which we're seeing right here. That might look really scary to you, but they are honestly not all that threatening. All you have to do is stick a unit with decent defense in range for 5 turns, and then they're worthless for the rest of the entire map. I guess if you have a flyer available at this point, you could attempt to send them over there and one-round them, or just get close enough to not be hit by the ballista, but there's really no point to doing that. You can just wait them out. They do quite a bit of damage, or at least the long ballista does, but again, if you stick your high defense units in first, you should be fine. Yeah, you see there on Lance, I think Lance is about 11 defense, and it did about 11 damage, so it's quite strong, but as long as you don't leave your squishies in range, you should be fine. There's a few side objectives on this map. You saw just there some green villager units moving. If you keep all of them alive for the entirety of the map, you get an energy ring at the end. Level up from Roy here. HP, strength, res, not bad. But unfortunately, they start on the other side of the map, and their movement is kind of random. I don't really know exactly what makes them move. They will move for the first few turns and get to a certain spot, but then I think it's dependent on killing the bandits and berserker up the top middle sort of point of the map, and after those units are gone, they'll start to move again. But I honest to God don't know, and during this particular attempt of the map, I attempted it twice because I made a silly mistake on my first attempt. During this particular attempt, they don't survive, spoiler alert. They get picked off and mercilessly slaughtered. So that's unfortunate, we're not going to get that energy ring. Would have been really useful on a unit like Wolt or maybe even Sue, but it's not to be. You may have also noticed we've been joined by another unit up the top there. His name is Elfin. If you went the other route split, so you went to the alternative maps that we've just done in the last few chapters, you'd get a girl named Lalom who does the exact same thing. They're dancer units or refresher units, which means they allow your units that have already moved to move again, which is really powerful. He's a really good unit, and on any standard run I'd suggest you always make room for them on your team. But unfortunately he's not in my list, so I can't use him. He would definitely make some maps go by a lot faster, but such is life, and we're not going to end up using him. I do consider dancing to be one of those class-specific abilities that I'm not going to use, much like how I didn't use any thieves to steal or open doors or whatever while they were force deployed. And he is force deployed here. You don't have a choice, but I decided I wasn't going to use that dance even if he was force deployed. Not that it really would have ended up being necessary. Again, I guess it could have got the chapter done a bit quicker, but you know, whatever. As for recruitable units, there's 2 this chapter. They're both axe units. The first one is Geese, who spawns in a village down the bottom where the bulk of my army is heading. He's a pirate. I believe he's the first pirate we have access to. He might even be the only pirate we have access to, I don't remember. And he's not very good, even with bonuses from Hardmode. He's really pretty... what's the word I'm looking for? He's just not very impressive. His stats aren't particularly good, and he's an axe unit in FE6 where axes just have no hit whatsoever, so you can pretty much safely skip over him, especially if you have already trained an axe unit. Before I get to the next recruitable unit, I'll talk about why I'm ferrying Roy with Sue right now, which is related. Both the units that are recruitable this chapter are recruited by Roy, And the one that's left is Bartray, and he spawns towards the leftmost side of the map, near where the villagers are right now. And the reason I'm sending Roy up to recruit Bartray, not Geese, is because despite the fact that I'm not using Bartray, he comes with a Brave Axe, and it's the only Brave Axe in the entire game. So if you don't recruit him now, you will never get one. And I think with my axe units being as slow but strong as they are, Brave weapons are basically a perfect fit for them. So I want to get my hands on that Brave Axe so I can give it to Ward, or maybe even Garret when we get him. As for Geese, I think he just spawns with a hand axe and a steel axe or something like that. Not exactly worthless, but not something I need to recruit him over, and I decided to just have Roy recruit Bartray first. You see here Wolt being incredibly useful. If he had leveled strength even one more time in his 16 levels, he would have been able to get that kill. But unfortunately he's a bad unit, and he can't, so I have to wait an extra turn. I opt not to attack that archer with Wolt just in case the ballista hits Wolt and the archer hits him twice, because that would probably kill him. Level up from Lance here, HP skill. He can't be amazing forever, I guess. I get some decent and then some very crappy level ups this level. I didn't really get anything that was sort of meh. And unlike the last few maps, I managed to use Boars and Ward at least a little bit more than I've used them before. So you see there that druid that just moved at the very end of enemy phase last turn. He was a reinforcement spawn, and he's basically the reason why you want to kill the enemy's lances fighting as quick as possible, because that druid is going to catch up to those villagers in no time, and he's going to slaughter them along with his buddies. So you need those villagers to move. I guess I could have restarted the map to try to keep them alive, but honestly I don't think an energy ring is worth it. Level up from Ward here. That's going to be his last level up of his entire life as a fighter. He's going to be promoted next turn. I'm not going to get him to level 20. I don't think there's much point. And he's kind of just a handicap on my team as of right now. I want to get his stats increased as quick as possible and make him competitive. Especially if you consider that Bartray is joining this chapter. If you're playing a regular run of this game and you're just using the best units, Bartray spawns with stats pretty goddamn similar to Ward after promotion, which means that my unit that I've been raising since the second chapter has almost been eclipsed by a unit that joins pre-promoted, so you don't have to spend any resources promoting them. There are a few units like that in this game that are just so much better than any units you could possibly already have, even after training them for so long. I think Ward does end up being slightly better than Bartray though, but it really is slight, which is somewhat disappointing. We've put quite a lot of effort into Ward, and it's not even that Ward has leveled up poorly. He's gotten strength almost every level up. It's just that this game has a bit of a balance issue when it comes to pre-promotes, and some of them are just really good. Down here where Rutger is, we're going to get some pirate reinforcements for a few turns. They're really not scary. Kind of pathetic really, just for experience. And you see Geese has already spawned. This guy is so annoying actually. I really don't like Geese, but I'll get into that in a second. We're going to promote Ward here. We get to see his promoted stats. I honestly love the animations for the promoted fighters. I think they're really cool. Warriors they're called, yeah. 22 strength, 8 speed, 12 defense, and 43 HP of course. Not all that bad, honestly. I mean, the speed obviously leaves something to be desired, but that's something we've known since the very start would happen. That strength is impressive. It's impressively high, and with the Brave Axe this chapter, Ward may actually be able to contribute a little bit every now and then. Boars, on the other hand, is still lagging behind. I don't actually have the item required to promote him yet, and I probably won't have it for quite some time, so Boars is going to be lagging behind for just a bit longer here. Accidentally left Wolt in range of that mercenary, but it's of no consequence. Wolt's actually fairly tanky. If there is one good thing about Wolt, it's that he's fairly tanky. And here the villager slaughter begins. There goes the first one, there goes the second one. The druid's gonna catch up next turn. And these guys, even as their friends are dying, are not gonna move. Actually, never mind. Here they go. They started moving now. It's a bit late, huh? You're already half gone, and you can't move far enough to guarantee survival, so... That was actually somewhat risky with Sue, what I did just there. She would have died in another archer hit there if I didn't manage to kill this guy, and I very almost didn't. I didn't actually do the calculations on that one, which I should have done. But luckily it all worked out. These pirates are going to spawn for a few more turns. There's not many pirate reinforcements, there's just a few spawning from the forts in the oceans. Back to what I was talking about earlier with Geese, I really don't like him. He not only is a bad unit, but he just gets in the way. Down here, after he's out of the village, he just goes after units that you don't want him to go after. Steals kills, steals experience, and just gets into positions that makes it frustrating to work with him. I was quite happy to see him die towards the end of the chapter. I'd never bothered recruiting him. No point. More pirates. They're actually hitting Marcus a surprisingly large number of times. I don't imagine their hit rates are very good. Luckily, Geese can't hit the broadside of a barn. Now, these villagers are running away. They're fearing for their lives, but unfortunately we're not going to save them. Their friends are already dead, and since we don't get a reward for saving just 2 of them, I'm not going to show them any mercy. They're all going to die. Every single one of them. And they're going to be, you know, screaming and crying for help from Lance. Help me, help me! And Lance will look at them and say, should have kept your buddies alive, should have run a little bit faster. Get a red gem from that village, very nice. We actually have quite a few things to sell, which we're going to see right here. I've forgotten his name. Our dancer spawns with a white gem and an angelic robe, so we're going to sell that white gem. Elfin, that's his name. And we're going to keep the angelic robe because that's actually somewhat useful. 7 HP is nothing to scoff at. We've already used one before on Lance, and it made him very tanky, so we're going to use it on someone else. Spoiler alert, we're going to use it this chapter. The pirate reinforcements are basically done at this point. There's just these guys up the top left. Ooh, that was a nasty way to go. And here's Bartray. He spawns with two other fighters with him. They're not recruitable, they're just generic green units, and there's no reward for keeping them alive, so you can just let them fight till they die. Now this was actually a pretty precarious situation here. That shaman, or druid or whatever he's called, the promoted one, is honest to god pretty terrifying. He does a lot of damage. And in combination, of course, there's 2 other units with him, another mage. It's actually quite risky to leave Bartray and his buddies down there with no aid. Bartray can very easily die this coming turn, but luckily for me he dodges enough and manages to survive, manages to pull through. He is unfortunately going to wear down the Brave Axe just a little bit. It could have been much worse though. And at the end of the day, as long as it's mostly intact, that's the main thing I care about. I like Bartray and all, but he's obviously not someone we're going to be using, so whether or not he died wasn't really the issue. It was just about keeping that Brave Axe alive. So here they come, the hand axe connects, the mage connects, and if that druid had gone for Bartray, could have easily killed him. Luckily we got pretty fortunate there. Bartray's going to kill that guy in one hit, and the rest of his gang is going to gang up on this one fighter, and because they're in FE6 they don't hit anything. See here just how deadly this guy is. He almost one-shots Lance. Luckily Lance manages to connect with both his hits and doesn't get hit himself. The ballistas are done for at this point, so it wouldn't matter if he had been hit, but it's nice that he wasn't. And here we're beginning to set up for a pretty long hold. There will be quite a few reinforcements this chapter. And this bridge is basically the best place to hold the fort. Not that we have a fort to hold, it's just a figure of speech, you know what I mean. Another use of the physics stuff here. I think I used one earlier at the very start of the map just to heal Lance all the way up after he got hit by the ballista. I've been pretty conservative with my physic, I think. I think I've done a good job of only using it when I kind of need to. I didn't really need to use it here, but I typically want to keep any unit that's really blocking an important point all the way up to full HP. I want to keep them at full HP as long as possible. Level up from Marcus there was pretty standard. Standard Marcus affair. You can't get speed every time, I guess. But at least it was 2 stats, you know, could have been just 1, could have been just HP. Subatra is going to use that Brave Axe 2 more times, and his friend is going to run away. So just checking there on the Brave Axe to make sure that it's alright. 17 uses out of 20, that's not bad. Better than 16, I guess. And we're going to have Sue carry Roy and Lance carry Bartray all the way back to the main group. And trust me, we are going to have time to get them there. If you couldn't tell by the video length, these reinforcements last a while, and they've been sped up pretty significantly as well. So we're going to have Marcus plug this hole for a while. He's been getting a few crits, which is pretty good. And we're going to see here just the very beginnings of the sort of engine that I set up. I basically have it in such a way that we have one of our paladins blocking the bridge, and then he's surrounded by 3 ranged units, 3 or 4 ranged units that can all chip in on whoever the paladin is fighting. So the reinforcements have started here. This archer's gonna learn a lesson about messing with us. It's funny, Bartray's fighter friend, one of them died, but the guy who's left just doesn't seem interested in fighting anymore. He lives for a surprisingly long time, but he just doesn't initiate. I guess it's because he would die if he did, but I don't think the AI cares about such things. I'm pretty sure they will just go for damage. But he just doesn't seem interested in fighting. He doesn't initiate fights after this point, which I found kind of interesting. It's almost like he'd given up after seeing his friend die. But I don't think AI has the ability to have sentiments like that. Yeah, I mean, he is pretty low, so it would make sense if he didn't want to initiate. But I find it very funny, he just does nothing there. You see, his phase just comes and goes. He doesn't heal, he doesn't run, he just sits there. I don't get it. So at this point, I'm thinking to myself that maybe I can get to the boss before the reinforcements start coming out. Maybe I can deal with these guys first. You see there, I just checked the weapons they had. You'll notice that 2 of them had some pretty dangerous weaponry. One of them had a Lance Reaver and the other one had an Armor Slayer. On my first run, I didn't check what weapons they had, and I saw 3 mercenaries coming up to the bridge, and I thought to myself, this looks like a fantastic time to use Boars and finally get some use out of him. And guess what? He got 1-rounded by the Armor Slayer guy, and I had to reset. So I've learned my lesson, the lesson being don't use Boars. A lesson learned the hard way. it really is a crying shame how he went from being one of the most useful utility units in the first few chapters to being barely present in these most recent ones. So you see here, this green unit is living for so long. He's not helping at all, mind you. He's not actually doing any damage, but he's kicking. He'll go down kicking. Geese moved in there and ensured his own fate. Now he will die the next turn. There's no way he's living against like 3 mercenaries that both, or rather all, double him. It's just not happening. And you see they're just reaffirming that those guys do have weapons that Boars can't handle, so Boars is the first one I'm going to move back. And we're going to begin the creation of the XP engine. Gonna have Marcus block everything off. And in just a few moments here, I think at the end of this phase after Geese dies, rest in peace Geese, you won't be missed. You were kind of annoying, to be completely honest with you. And there goes the last green unit, so no more green units left. Fantastic. Game will speed up just a little bit now. We're gonna move down Sue, put Roy in a shop. Roy has some things to sell that I had gathered from Melinas at the start of the chapter. And here begins the speed up. This goes for roughly 7 minutes, 6.5 maybe. It goes for quite a while. They spawn for a long time, and there's really not much to say about it. I have a few more extra things to sell, the red gem being one of them. Roy has a few miscellaneous things to sell. But other than that, this process is not all that engaging. All I can say really is that I basically rotate Lilina, Boars, Sue and Ward around and get them some extra kills. So I'll probably just be quiet for a bit here. There's really not much left for me to say. This part plays itself out, so feel free to open up another tab and keep yourself occupied for a little bit while you hear the game noises go on in the background. And it's almost over. This little part here was just, I got distracted by something. There'll be a slight cut, so I'm not sure if the speed up time is a little bit different, it feels a little bit faster. So of that, all I can say really is that Sue is leveling up really well. Lilina got a crappy level up or two. Boar's got some use, just a little bit. And all in all, I'm pretty happy with the progress that my entire squad is making here. I probably could have fed Lilina a few more kills rather than Sue. You see there, she's basically already better than promoted Wolt. She's not even promoted yet. But these are the last two enemies, or the last two regular enemies. All that's left after this is the boss, so there'll be a brief cut while I move all my units over there. And he dies in basically one turn. He's a total pushover, because he's a general with an axe, and you know what's good against generals and axes? Armor slayers. And you know what's good against bosses? Rutger. So Lilina's going to get one final level up as a little mage right there. And we're going to promote her at the end of this chapter. We're also going to give her the angelic robe, just because she's probably going to see quite a bit of combat in the coming chapters. So I wanted to make sure that she's not going to die in 2 hits. See here, Rutger just absolutely slicing and dicing this boss. Pathetic. And level up for Rutger too. HP skill res, all the stats he so desperately needed. I'm not going to conquer this turn, just going to give Lilina that promotion and that angelic robe, which will take 2 more turns. But that will be the end of the chapter. I don't think I really need to tell you how good Lilina's going to get. I'm sure you'll see it for yourself. Pretty fantastic unit. I guess she was still leveling pretty quickly, so I probably could have capped her to 20 before I promoted her, but I mean, just look at these stats. How could you resist? Look how good she is. And that'll be the chapter. Thanks for watching.